You already know you shouldn't do it. That's the part nobody talks about. It's not that you don't know, you know. The second he goes quiet, the second the conversation just sort of trails off and you can feel the silence stretching out longer than it should, you know exactly what you're doing when you pick up your phone and start typing. You know it on some level, and you do it anyway, because the anxiety of not knowing is louder than the part of you that knows better. And then the message goes, and maybe he responds quickly and you feel a wave of relief so powerful you don't even register what just happened underneath it. Or maybe he takes hours or days. And every second of that wait confirms the thing you were afraid of, and so the next time he goes quiet, the urge to reach out comes even faster, even stronger, because now you have evidence that the silence means something. And the cycle locks in. You reach, he responds, or he doesn't. Either way, something has shifted, and it has been shifting quietly, one message at a time. Here is the thing that is going to be uncomfortable to hear, but that you deserve to hear clearly. Every time you text first when he goes quiet, you are not just sending a message. You are sending information. You are telling him without using these words that his silence works, that it creates enough discomfort in you that you will always move toward him, that the space between you is something you cannot hold. And once a man has that information, he doesn't need to show up consistently. Because he already knows you will close the distance. This is not a video about playing games. This is not about pretending you don't care when you do. This is not a manipulation strategy dressed up as advice. This is about something much more important than tactics. This is about the energy dynamic that forms inside a relationship, often invisibly, often early, and how your behavior in the moments of silence is either building your power or slowly eroding it. And by the time this video is over, you are going to understand exactly what happens in his psychology when you always reach first, and exactly what happens when you don't. The advice you have probably been given sounds something like this: just be direct. If you want to talk to him, text him, don't play games, don't be passive. Strong women don't sit around waiting, they go after what they want. And there is something in that advice that feels empowering, which is exactly why it is stuck. The problem is that it confuses initiative with anxiety. It treats reaching out from a place of fear the same as reaching out from a place of desire, and they are not the same thing. Not even close. Reaching out because you genuinely want to connect, because something reminded you of him, because you have something real to say, that is initiative. That is healthy. That is the kind of reaching out that builds a relationship. But reaching out because he went quiet and the silence is making you spiral, because you need to know where you stand, because you are trying to manage your own anxiety by pulling his attention back toward you, that is not initiative. That is fear wearing initiative's clothes. And men can feel the difference even when you can't. The second myth is the one that sounds the most generous. I just don't want him to think I don't care. I don't want him to feel like I'm ignoring him. I'm just being thoughtful. And if that is genuinely true, if you're reaching out because you're thinking of him and want him to know it, then this video is not about you. But if you're reaching out because the silence feels like a threat and you are trying to neutralize it, then what you're calling thoughtfulness is actually self-protection. And self-protection disguised as affection is one of the most common ways women lose their footing in relationships without realizing it. By the time we finish today, you are going to understand the psychology of what happens on both sides of that silence. You are going to understand what he experiences when you always reach first. You are going to understand what you experience, what it costs you when you keep doing it. And you are going to walk away with a clear, honest framework for knowing when reaching out is power and when it is surrender, not so you can manipulate anyone, but so you can stop unknowingly giving away the thing that makes you magnetic. I want to introduce you to what I call the pursuit gradient. This is the framework that explains why consistent one-sided reaching shifts the dynamic of a relationship, not because of dating rules or mind games, but because of how human psychology actually responds to effort, scarcity, and emotional investment. The pursuit gradient works like this. In any relationship, there's a natural balance of pursuit, of who is moving toward whom and by how much. When that balance is roughly equal, both people feel the relationship is mutual. Both people feel chosen. Both people feel the pull of the other. But when that balance tilts consistently in one direction, when one person is always the one closing the distance, the person being pursued unconsciously begins to adjust their behavior to match the new reality. They stop moving forward because they don't need to, you are already moving toward them. This is not a character flaw in men. This is not cruelty or manipulation. This is a deeply wired human response to effort and availability. We are neurologically designed to assign greater value to things that require some effort to attain and less value to things that are always, immediately, effortlessly available. This is true of people just as much as it is true of anything else. A man who knows at a felt level, not a conscious one, that you will always reach first is a man who is being slowly conditioned to be passive in the relationship. And passivity from him will feel to you like emotional neglect, which will make your anxiety worse, which will make you reach out more, and the gradient tilts further. The pursuit gradient has 3 stages. I am going to walk you through each one, what it looks and feels like from the inside, how it progresses, and the specific moment in each stage when you have the power to reverse it. Because you always do, but you have to know what you are looking at first. Let me show you how this plays out in a real scenario because I want you to see this from the inside, not from a theory page. Imagine a woman named Jade. She met someone 3 months ago, things started brilliantly, he was consistent, attentive, he initiated plans, he texted good morning without being asked. Jade felt wanted, she felt pursued, and then around week 6 something subtle shifted. His texts got a little slower, not dramatically, just a few hours instead of a few minutes, and Jade felt it immediately, that slight drop in temperature. So she did what felt natural, she reached out. She sent something light, a meme, a question about his day, a reference to something they had talked about, and he responded, warmly, and she felt relief. And she filed it away. When he goes quiet, I reach out and it fixes it. That became the pattern. Every time the silence stretched, Jade closed it. Every time she felt that drop in temperature, she turned up her heat to compensate. 6 weeks later, Jade is the one who initiates almost every conversation. She is the one who suggests plans, she is the one who checks in, and she is starting to feel in a way she cannot quite name yet like she is carrying the relationship. She is not angry at him, she is just quietly, persistently exhausted and confused because he is still warm when they are together, he still says the right things, but something is different, something has moved. What moved was the pursuit gradient, and Jade did not notice it happening because each individual text seemed harmless. It was the pattern that cost her, not any single message. This is why it is so invisible until it has already done significant damage. Stage 1, the test, when his silence first appears. The first stage of the pursuit gradient is what I call the test, though he is almost never running it consciously. It happens when he goes quiet for the first time in a meaningful way, not because he has decided to pull back strategically, but because life happened, or because his interest is still forming, or because he is watching to see what you do. Men in the early stages of something real are paying attention to how a woman holds herself when the attention drops. It is one of the most revealing data points about who she is. A woman who immediately fills the silence with a reach out communicates something very specific in this moment. I am not comfortable in uncertainty. I need contact to manage my feelings. My emotional stability is partly dependent on your response. None of this is conscious on her part, but it is received and it registers. Compare that to the woman who notices the quiet, feels the pull of anxiety, and holds her own energy anyway. She is not playing hard to get. She is demonstrating something genuinely rare, that she is full, that her life does not pause when he goes silent, that she exists with or without his attention in this moment. And that quality, that specific quality, is one of the most compelling things a woman can reveal about herself. What you do in stage 1 sets the template for the entire dynamic, not because you are training him in some calculated way, but because you are showing him who you are before the relationship has even formed its habits. Habits formed early in a relationship are profoundly resistant to change. If you establish in month 1 that you close every silence, the relationship will expect it by month 3 and depend on it by month 6. Stage 2, the conditioning, when the pattern takes root. The second stage is the conditioning. This is where Jade was in the story I told you. The individual behavior has become a pattern, and the pattern has become an expectation for him and critically for you. He has learned at a felt level that silence is safe, that if he goes quiet you will return. He does not think about this. He does not plan it. He simply experiences again and again that when he withdraws you advance, and so withdrawal begins to feel like a neutral option. A resting state because it carries no consequence. At the same time, you are being conditioned too, and this part is equally important. Every time you text first and he responds, the anxiety is briefly relieved and your brain learns the way to feel better is to reach out. This is the same neurological loop as any anxiety-driven behavior. The relief feels like resolution. But it is not resolution, it is just the pause before the next cycle begins. Because the relief is temporary and the silence will come again, and now the urge to reach out will be even stronger because it has been rewarded. Stage 2 is where most women recognize that something is wrong in the dynamic, but cannot identify exactly what changed or when. The relationship still has warmth, he is still present in the moments they are together, but there is an asymmetry that has become structural, a lean in the relationship that she is always compensating for, like walking on a slanted floor so consistently that she has stopped noticing the incline. She just knows she's always slightly more tired than she thinks she should be. Stage 3, the cost, what you lose that you cannot get back easily. The third stage is the cost. And it is the stage that matters most to understand because it is where the damage becomes real and where many relationships silently end, not with a breakup, but with a slow emotional withdrawal from the woman who can no longer sustain the energy it takes to carry an unbalanced dynamic. What you lose in stage 3 is not just influence over the relationship. You lose something more personal and more important, your own self-respect inside the relationship. Because there is a part of you, a quiet, clear, deeply honest part, that knows you have been reaching more than you have been received. And that knowledge, accumulated over weeks and months, does something to the way you see yourself inside this specific relationship. you stop feeling chosen. You start feeling like someone who chose and then spent all their time trying to justify the choice. The other thing you lose in stage 3 is mystery. And I do not mean mystery in a calculated, withholding sense. I mean the genuine sense of a person whose inner world is not fully visible, whose responses are not guaranteed, whose attention has to be earned because it is not automatically given. Mystery in this real sense is not something you manufacture. It is something you preserve by not handing over all of your emotional cards in every moment of uncertainty. When he can predict with certainty that silence will bring a text, there is nothing left to wonder about. And wondering is what sustains a man's pursuit over time. It is the open loop that keeps him engaged. When you always close it for him, he never has to. You also lose leverage, and I want to say this carefully because leverage sounds transactional and relationships are not transactions. But there is a real dynamic of mutual investment that healthy relationships depend on. When one person is clearly more invested in maintaining contact than the other, the less invested person has disproportionate influence over the emotional temperature of the relationship. They set the pace. They determine what is normal. And the more invested person adjusts accordingly, always quietly reshaping herself around whatever the other person gives. That is not a partnership, that is a performance, and performances are exhausting to sustain. So what do you actually do with this? Because knowing the framework is one thing. Changing the behavior when you are sitting with a phone in your hand and 3 days of silence and an anxiety that is climbing, that is something different. Let me give you the specific, honest things to do. The first thing is to learn to distinguish between desire and anxiety before you reach out. Before you send that text, ask yourself one question: am I reaching out because I want to or because the silence is uncomfortable? If the honest answer is desire, if you genuinely have something to say, something real is bringing him to mind, you want to share something specific, then reach out. That is not losing power, that is connection. But if the honest answer is anxiety, if what you are really trying to do is end the uncertainty, pull his attention back, confirm that he still exists in relation to you, then do not send it. Not because of a rule, but because you deserve to know the difference between what you want and what you fear. And you deserve to act from the first, not the second. The second thing is to fill the silence with yourself, not with him. The reason his silence feels so loud is because in that space you have nothing competing for your attention. You are alone with the anxiety, and the anxiety tells you a story about what his silence means, about where this is going, about what you did wrong or what is about to happen. The antidote to that story is not a text to him. The antidote is a life that is full enough that his silence is an inconvenience rather than a crisis. Not as a tactic, as a truth about who you are. When your own life is rich and engaging, his silence does not have the same real estate inside your mind. And when you finally do connect, you are connecting from fullness rather than from need. And fullness is always, always more attractive than need. The third thing, and this is the mindset shift that holds everything else together, is to change what you believe silence means. Right now, your nervous system has been trained to read his silence as a problem to be solved, as a signal that something is wrong and that your job is to fix it. I want you to replace that reading with something closer to the truth. His silence is information, not emergency. It is data about who he is and where he is, not a command for you to act. You are allowed to receive information without immediately responding to it. You are allowed to notice the quiet and let it tell you what it has to say before you decide what, if anything, you want to do. That space between stimulus and response is where your power actually lives, not in the text you send. In the moment before you send it, when you choose to respond from intention instead of reaction. And here is the last thing I want to leave you with. The woman who holds her own energy when he goes quiet, who does not collapse the silence, who does not reach first every single time, is not playing a game. She is demonstrating something real about herself. She is showing him that her world does not stop when his attention does, that she is not available at every signal, that being with her requires actual showing up, consistent effort, real pursuit. And a man who is genuinely right for you will not be put off by that. He will be drawn to it, because quality men do not want someone who is easy to have. They want someone worth the work of keeping. If something in this video just described something you have been living through, if you recognized yourself in Jade's story or in any of the 3 stages, I want you to know that recognizing the pattern is the first real step out of it. You are not broken for having done this. Every woman who has ever cared about someone has felt the pull of that anxiety. The difference is now you have the framework to understand what is underneath it, and the language to call it what it actually is. If this gave you something real today, hit the like button right now. It costs you nothing, and it tells me that this kind of depth is what you need from this channel, the videos that go past the surface advice and give you something that actually changes how you see your own behavior. Every like genuinely matters to how this channel grows and who it reaches. Subscribe if you are not already here and turn on the notification bell because I post new videos every week, And every single one is built for the woman who wants to understand what is actually happening, not just what it looks like. This is a community for women who are done being confused and ready to be clear. I want you in it. And before you go, drop a comment below and tell me this. What do you do right now when he goes quiet? Be honest, I am not here to judge, I am here to help. And your answer might be the exact thing someone else needs to read today. I read every comment on this channel, every single one. So tell me where you are, let's talk about it.